Okay, another little hobby of mine here. Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnum revolver. I like things that make lots of noise and fire, and this one certainly does. It's certainly not the biggest ones anymore. They, they make stuff right over the 50 caliber now, but just another hobby. I just thought I'd throw this in there for people to have a peek at. Hi everyone. It's been a while since I've been back and had much to do with my bike here, but tonight I think I'm just going to sit down in my chair and just do a walkabout and a talk about here, and I'll show you what I have done to it, and we'll just have a peek. A lot of you are already familiar with my engine, 13B, naturally aspirated. I dry fired it here the other day, and I couldn't believe the fire that came out of it. It was quite a show. Only lasted for a couple seconds, but it certainly ran with some kind of authority anyway. All it did was just to prime and burn down, so it didn't last very long. But at least I heard it bark and it made some fire anyway, so now I'm happy. I'll carry on and see if I can get some more done to it. I guess we'll just start right back up at the front end here again. I've changed some things around here. I slipped the joints out and put my handlebars down in underneath the top yoke, so I should have some really good control there. And it does have a strut across the top of the wheel. It's a track front end. There you go. It's supposed to be a really good front end for high speed and whatever. My oil cooler I tucked in right in behind it. There's a little room there. It's not real tight, but there's starts to kind of get snug in there after a while. All I did for the bottom bracket of this cooler, I just hooked a little rod onto it with a pin here, and goes around through just a nut that I drilled and tapped and a bolt. And if I have to do any work on the front, I just take the bolt out, or just actually loosen it off. The rod pulls out and the whole thing kind of rocks ahead from the bottom if you want. You can take the two top bolts out and take the whole thing out really easy. It's not hard to work on. I purposely made it so that it's fairly easy to get at things. Motor mount. It's all welded in from the bottom and that, so it's strong like bull. Just back to the front here, there is a bit of a sending unit on this thermostat housing for the motorcycle too, so I don't know what I'll do. Monitor something. Maybe I'll just pretend it's running cool and call her good. I'd like to make up a pair, or a set I guess I should call it, of shorter spark plug wires, because there's only 1.5 feet from plug to coil, so I don't see why a guy should have a great big long stock wire on them. If anybody knows why I should, please let me know. I asked once before and I never got an answer. Now I'm going to sit here with my camera and point out what I mean. Leading vacuum advance is here, trailing is here. The leading vacuum advance, it's not important how far it moves. What I'm getting at is the trailing moves twice as far as the leading does. And I wonder, I just would like to know, like I know there's marks here to change the trailing timing. But I'm just wondering if anybody can tell me why it moves so much more. Is it just to get rid of more emissions, or I just would like to know the story on it if anyone knows, and if nobody does, shame on you. Also, I'm wondering how many volts it takes to activate the fields in my alternator. Like I don't really want to feed it a full 12 volts if it's not necessary. I'd sooner step it down to what it needs if it requires less. Of course, I got rid of that ugly Fram filter that was on it when I got the engine. I went to a Napa. I don't know how good they are or how bad they are or anything. Nonetheless, that's what I got, so that's what I'm using. Wiring. I've had my issues with wiring. I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. What you're seeing here is just snap ties that I haven't snapped off yet. I might run another wire or two down through them, so they're still loose and whatever. I did have some wiring issues with my ignition. For quite a while. In fact, if you look it up, they tell you that the gap on the Dizzy should be somewhere around 30 thousandths, which is what they say. If this first gen Dizzy was left at 30 thousandths, which it pretty much probably was there, you know, not too far off, I couldn't get it to fire on a normal rotation. I had to spin the Dizzy fast before I could get any action on the plugs. I just bench set it up and ran it. So I don't know, I think I moved them actually together. There's no adjustment on them. I just kind of moved the tang over, and they're very close together now, but they fire nice, or seem to fire nice anyway. And I don't know, is there supposed to be power fed to one of these wires that go into the Dizzy? I mean, there's two of them, but I'm sure they're not supposed to carry any power. It's just a magnetic signal that fires the igniters and that, as far as I know. Maybe somebody can clue me in on that a bit too. Second gen coils, first gen Dizzy. Like I say, I did dry fire it and it started and died. Of course, it had no more fuel, it had to die. So I think I do have the ignition right, but I'm just wondering why I would have to do that to make it work. And transmission oil cooler lines. I'm not going to run coolers. I'm just going to run one to the other, and just so that they can circulate, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to run a cooler on them anyway. But I don't think it's necessary. Not for what I'm doing anyway. And getting to the back here, this is basically, I guess, the way my chain drive is going to operate. I haven't got it mounted on anything yet. I really don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't came up with a good plan where everything will be solid here. Whatever I do, that same mount I want to incorporate into the transmission mount too, so I'm just going to do a little thinking on it. It'll come. You can see a little better from this side, maybe, the idea that I'm using here anyway. And that goes straight back into the shaft drive, and And back to the differential and the rear wheel. Shifter, of course, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I will wire it up so that it can't start when it's in gear. I guess that's about the main thing that I'm worried about here. Is certainly don't want it to be able to start when it's in gear. Exhaust. I started when I dry fired it here the other night. There was a lot of fire coming out. So I'm definitely going to have an uplift on them pipes, or I'll probably be starting grass fires. Because they won't be very long. They'll only be, yeah, 1.5 feet maybe, something like that. Something I dug out of a box here the other day. I couldn't believe I even still had it. I guess I'm upside down here. But my old Edelbrock ram flow. I've had this thing for, Christ, 30 years or more. Had it on a 300 horse 327 years ago. Worked good. Probably have to get a new filter for it. It's kind of mungy and bungy, but I think it'll serve the purpose quite well. It's got a really nice low profile on it. I think that'll work good. On my 500 Holly, I haven't got the PCB valve or anything hooked onto it yet. Ignition switch just hanging down on the side here. It's just accessories on and start. That's all it is. Port valves. I don't know. I still haven't made a final decision on what I'm going to do with them yet. I think probably I'm going to end up running some kind of a small compressor. I don't know if I'll use a canister to pump into or just run it direct to it with an electric switch on the throttle or something. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. There's a mount on this side. It's basically the same as the other side, just upside down to make up the difference in height from one side to the other. Hoses kind of got to be an issue here. Of course, I come out of my water pump and it goes across. This is the one that goes across to the thermostat housing. There's a better shot. And of course the upper, I was lucky enough to have them at least coming out the same side here off of this radiator. So I just built a fitting here to go from the small holes to the large holes. I'll cut them down on the lathe after and get rid of those. And into my housing here. Does get a little tight on this side, I must admit, but it'll be good. I'm not worried about that at all. Well, that'll kind of bring me up to date here on what's going on anyway. A couple more good goes at it, and I think I almost have it ready to take outside and fire up. See what it does. I gotta get this chain drive finished and then I'll have time to think about other things. Seat will be down in low in the inside here. She's actually quite a stretch to get up over top and reach the bars, but it's okay. It'll be just fine.